You talk us through the practical side, preparing a CV, writing application, interviews, and what surprised you about this process the most?
Yeah, so I would say my first advice, I first of all, I got my CV reviewed by a number of people. Some of them I knew from before, but some of them I didn't even know, and they offered to help, look at my CV and give feedback. And any feedback was valuable. So one of my first CV reviewers was a friend who is not from a life science background, but he was working in one of the bigger consulting firms. And the first thing he said was, "I do not understand a word of this, and I doubt anyone would." So that was surprising, a little bit shocking, but also an important piece of feedback. And I'm glad it came, without any sugarcoating or anything of that sort. So what is important for people with an academic background trying to do this transition is to realize, how can you express your CV, your achievements, your whatever you've done in the past 3-6 years in a way that is commercially relatable? And that is a communication style that comes over time. And I would say that in itself is a journey. Simply rewriting the CV to the best possible format, in my mind, that should take at least time in the order of months, sometimes even years, because you do need to go through that transition yourself, and someone else cannot write down your achievements on your behalf in a more commercial language.
Right. And so how did you approach that? And when you were writing your CVs, how did you translate your scientific experience into a language that HR team members and business leaders can understand?
Yeah. I think that's a absolutely important problem that a lot of people will face. So certainly using feedback, it's an iterative process. It cannot happen in one go. It's not something that you sit down on a Sunday afternoon and redo your CV. You have to iterate several times. So after getting the initial feedback, I changed and I asked the people, like, okay, what do you take away from this, to try and understand how much are they understanding of what I'm trying to explain, and also getting to know their perspectives on what is commercial, what is impact, what is it that they're looking for. And one of my personal key takeaways from several of those conversations was to make things generally more numerical and impact driven. So rather than saying something like, I worked to discover X and Y scientific truth, what was the impact of it? So it could be that your discovery led to a potential new R&D program, or uncovered a new pathway which could target cancer or a certain disease. That is something of greater commercial relevance. So trying to think through your achievement, your journey during PhD, and kind of figuring out what those points were that are potentially translatable commercially, that is very important. And then just iterate hundreds of times. I think the version of CVs that eventually went out for my job interviews, that was possibly the 200th iteration.